All right, guys, this is Chris with Drop Dice. It is May the 4th be with you, of course. So today is International Star Wars Day. As being part of the RPG community, I learned that you guys have kind of taken my favorite holiday hostage and made it Community Day. Just to kind of let everybody know in the RPG community, your day is International GM's Day, which is March 4th for GM's Day. See? You can leave Star Wars alone, but in the good spirit of community, I will go ahead and so today is International. I will go ahead and talk to you guys about what I've got going on, what I've seen going on the community. Sorry about that noise. My computer kicked on my own Hangout on me. Anyways, so let's start with Star Wars. So I've got my Support Your Troops shirt on, which you can't really see the wording at the bottom, but it's Stormtrooper helmet, Support Your Troops. Speaking of which, there's a lot of kind of back and forth about the new Stormtrooper helmets. I don't know if I'm a fan or not of the new Stormtroopers. The chrome guy in the cape looks awesome. I'll give you that one. But they have kind of a weird, like, emoted face now. They don't look menacing. And the idea of the helmets, for anybody who's not a big Star Wars fan, is to be this menacing, faceless evil. And then when you start adding, like, this mouth-looking section on there, it kind of feels a little off. I'm not going to like completely dump the movie because I'm a huge Star Wars fan. For anybody who doesn't know, that is a custom Starbird I have tattooed on my arm for my own Star Wars fan fiction writing group. One of our guys actually got some stuff published, and as far as I'm aware, there's at least 2 of us that have this tattoo, which we got on May the 4th a couple years back. So maybe I'm due for another tattoo for Star Wars. Keeping the Star Wars spirit going, this is an old book, but if you haven't read it, this is kind of my recommendation for this year to kind of start you off in the right way, is the Star Wars Path of Destruction. It is a Bane book. It starts the Bane trilogy. It is very good. If you've ever read the comic that included Bane, it is pretty much a novelization of that, to be honest. But it is very interesting because you get to see a villain who tells his story from his side, approaches it very logically, and he's very calm and collected about his actions. And the reason I picked this one to be my pick for this year, as far as what you guys should take a look at and read if you haven't done so, is Bane from Star Wars. His personality, his thought process would come across really well in a tabletop RPG. If you were to create a villain and you were to invest in who he was, what he was doing, set his emotions, set his line of thinking, and he could be a very interesting person to actually have your players go against, and I'm sure your players would like something like that. So if you've never done a villain that is not necessarily straight black and white, evil versus good kind of thing, I would definitely look into that. It does provide you some interesting story arcs you can pursue. All right. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is I haven't given my official opinion, except for a little while ago I gave a little bit of opinion on it, on the new lightsaber, the cross hilt. So a lot of people who are fans of Star Wars I've seen make complaints about it because of the design of how the Star Wars lightsaber hilts work. Some of those points are kind of valid. However, there's a design idea behind all lightsabers that, you know, the person who puts it together, it's part of them. And you know, just because a saber has never worked that way in the past doesn't mean that something hasn't been unlocked that allows it to work this way now. So I'm totally down with the crossguard. I love it, actually. I'm near willing to get that as part of my next cosplay. Speaking of which, if you do like cosplay, I haven't updated my stuff in a while. I've got some old cosplay pictures from me doing Star Wars. My character Jiro Shan, or Jiro Shale rather, who was apprenticed to Murdoch Shan. I have my cosplay from Celebration 6, I think it was, maybe it was 5, down in Orlando, Florida, and a couple other events after that. Go ahead and check it out. I've got a when he was an apprentice version where he carries a lightsaber, he's Jedi robes, and then I've also got his Sith version where he turned into a Force warrior and he would just use any weapons around him. That's my favorite Jiro Shale, to be honest. He actually developed from role-playing, which is why I'm bringing him up, because it's a nice segue into our role-playing aspect of today. Um, in Juice's video, he mentioned that he'd like to see a pickup game of Star Wars. Unfortunately, I am coming close to finals this week, so I just don't have the time to be able to put together a pickup game. I love Star Wars, as you can kind of tell here, but it's just one of those things that I gotta focus my commitments where I can. I made the mention before that I will be doing a game with the Tabletop One-Shot group on Facebook and the W3. That's probably gonna be after my finals are done and I have a chance. I've read through the rule book for Souls of Steel. It looks pretty cool. It could be deadly depending on how we do things, but it looks like a lot of fun, and so I want to try that out. I mentioned it before. It is going to be an Apocalypse World hack. So if you've never seen Apocalypse World, stick it around, because eventually I'll do a little channel like basics of Apocalypse World, and I think that's how I'm going to handle introducing systems. Is I'm just going to do a quick 10-minute or so video that kind of gives you a quick basics of what this system's about, how basic mechanics work, and then in game, if you need further explanation, we'll give you more. Honestly, Apocalypse World is pretty straightforward. The only one that I think is possibly easier to teach is Dungeon World, because I hand you all of the moves you can do on a sheet, and everybody has that cheat sheet in front of them. So super easy to work with. So let's talk about RPG stuff right now. So I've got the World Builder series coming up. We've started working with the RPG Map Makers Consortium. There's the One-Shot group, the W3. If you haven't checked out any of those communities and you are watching my channel, definitely check those guys out. They do have a lot of content that's out there for you guys. And the map making consortium is actually pretty cool, because if you don't happen to be talented at maps, there's guys like myself, and I will screw up his Facebook name. I know it, but Nelson, his channel is Infinite Roleplay. He's been putting together some maps, and I know that he has an idea of putting together some free unmarked maps so that GMs could use those for their own uses. And I'm on board with him. I've got a couple half-done maps that I can finish out and throw on the community for everybody too. So unfortunately, I can't really set a deadline on that because I've been a little busy lately. But hopefully, we'll start to see some of that stuff coming forward with my content. Later today, I'll be doing a blog post. Since it is May the 4th, I tend to get a little bit more into the writing aspect. So there'll be a quick blog post. I'm probably going to touch a little bit on Star Wars and make a couple other comments inside there. But this is kind of my official Star Wars thing for the day. On the blog, we're going to talk about the gods from the world building series, and I'm going to go into a little more detail like we talked about previously. Now, if you do get a chance to check out that world building video, the discussion is still open about races. I am completely open to anyone's suggestions. As it stands, the only things that I have really put a solid thought in is my idea of having hags, humans, and halflings in the game. Other than that, I'm pretty open. The more I kind of think about and let it stew in my head, the Garuda, which is that bird people, I may change their name, but I'm actually kind of getting attached to that too. It's growing on me. It's a flightless bird species, and my problem with the Arakoa, I think is how you say it, from the Princes of the Apocalypse game arc that they just came out with, is that flight. It's pretty huge to have flight. Same with the Ganassi. That's something that a GM has to be prepared for, because it does change the element of play. Because if I say you can breathe underwater, certain traps are just not valid to your character anymore. I mean, you still have the rest of the party, because chances are they're not all going to be, in this example, a water Ganassi, but it's definitely something to kind of think about as a GM. Speaking of new content, if you guys haven't checked it out on Wizards of the Coast, they've got a new Unearthed Arcana called Waterborne, and I'm super excited about this one. Basically, I love Dragonlance, first off. That's kind of what got me into gaming. I started with Dragonlance, and they introduced the Minotaurs in there, which are amazing. Like, you get to charge, and you get Gore Attack, which is a D10. When you do a melee attack as a bonus action, you can shove someone. Like, they're all about just being on top of you and just getting in your face kind of a race, which is perfect for who they are in the books, because they were pirate minotaur that could sail the ocean and had these incredible intelligence to them. and they nailed it as far as I'm concerned as a longtime Dragonlance fan. The other stuff that came out with is a new fighting style called Swashbuckling, I think it is. Let me just double check that real quick here. Mariner is the fighting style. There's a new rogue archetype, which is the Swashbuckler, if I remember right. That must be where I'm getting things confused. But the new fighting style, Mariner, is pretty cool, actually. Essentially, as long as you're not wearing heavy armor or using a shield, you have a swim and speed climb equal to your normal speed, and you gain a +1 bonus to AC. That's actually pretty neat to have inside the game. There are some notes from the designers, so go ahead and check those out before you decide to fully implement it inside your game. Having that swim and climb speed could change your game in the same way of having a water Ganassi in your game. Like, he won't be able to breathe underwater, but he's going to be able to travel 30 feet underwater, which is a vast improvement from a normal person. And then when he leaves the water, let's say you guys go up to a cliff, instead of having to make climb checks, because of his fighting style, he can now just climb that cliff so long as it's not sheer. That's kind of a big difference there. All right, so let's take a look here. So, one other thing about the Minotaurs, they do tell you that that the idea is usually worlds have one big brutish race, and so they tell you to kind of take a look around and see if you want to use like the half orcs, the Goliaths from Elemental Evil Player's Companion, and now you've got the Minotaur. Basically, they're basically saying, you know, pick which ones you want to use. Don't just flood your world with these big brutish monsters. Personally, I'm kind of against that. I think it would be kind of cool to play in a world where everything is just harsh and deadly, and every race out there is just this brutal race. That seems kind of cool. But I mean, if you're gonna have half orcs, you kind of have to have humans. So unless you're gonna paint them differently and call them something different, you know, it definitely is one thing. So the Swashbuckler, another super cool rogue ability. To me, this is the first rogue path, or excuse me, roguish archetype is what they call them, that feels like a combat rogue. I like the thief. There's a lot of stuff you can do with the thief to emulate a classic combat rogue, but it just falls short for me. The assassin, it's good for surprises and doing what assassins should do, but it still doesn't feel like a combat rogue, like a thug. And my favorite rogue to play is a thug. Like, I don't want to have diplomacy. I don't want to have persuasion. I want to have open lock as Sunder. That's how I want to get past doors. I want to be the guy that they call Clamps, to use a Futurama reference. That's just my preference on the rogue flavor. So it's nice to see that sort of thing kind of coming up. That I mean, it's still a little shy of a thug, because it's got stuff like panache, and it's a little bit more finesse focused. When I see a rogue that kind of feels more like a strength, I'm going to punch you in the face kind of rogue, that's when I'll be truly happy with it. The next one that's real big inside here is the Sorceress Origin of Storm. I haven't finished reading that one. I'm not a big fan so far of sorcerers in 5th edition. Maybe this will kind of change my opinion on that. But it's one of those things that if it's something you like, I would definitely check it out, because there's more options. So that kind of is what's going on for me right now. Now, inside some of the other videos that have gone up, there's been one from, let's see here, who else was it? I believe it was PhDnD also put one up, and I mentioned Juce put one up earlier. Andrew Knapp at his channel's SR2 Joker. They've all put up videos to kind of talk about what's going on today for them, just in general. The ones that I kind of wanted to mention here or the other one I wanted to mention, I should say, is PhDnD's Wake Up and May the 4th Be With You video. Basically, he talks about the pacing of the releases of 5th edition, which is actually a comment to I believe it's WASD20's channel, where he was talking about the release dates and the progress that that Wizards of the Coast has been doing with 5th edition. I'm kind of on board with what what PhDnD is putting out there. Basically, I think that the path of how they're releasing content right now is really nice. Every month or so, we see an unearthed arcana that gives us just a little bit more to play with, and just a little bit more, and then we get these adventure supplements, and usually that content is free coming with it. I mean, I don't necessarily mind. I mean, I really enjoy that it's free. So let me start there. Thank you, Wizards of the Coast. If any of you happen to be watching, I thank you guys for doing this as a free thing, and I like the mentality that they're doing with it. If you guys read the Unearthed Arcana from issue 1, where they introduced the Spellless Ranger, these are effectively beta rules and playtest stuff for stuff that they might have coming around the bin. So if there's something that you like in there, make sure you provide feedback when the survey comes time, because that's going to be the way that we start to see new things coming out and becoming official. And until it does become official, a lot of the stuff that they're putting out, especially in this Unearthed Arcana stuff, I'm digging. I wasn't a big fan of mass combat. I think it was a little too complicated, but that's just a personal preference. Let's see. That's kind of Unearthed Arcana in a nutshell. It just hasn't been around too terribly long for me to talk too much about it. The Spellless Ranger article, it is called Class Design Variants, I believe. If you haven't checked it out, I would definitely check it out, because it does teach you how to build your own classes in a more effective manner, how to break down a class by its tropes, keep the tropes, merge in the ones you want, get rid of the ones that are considered excess, and build a balance. Man, this thing needs to be fixed. So one of these days, I'm going to remember at the start of my video that I should really plug this in. All right, there we go. So sorry about all that noise. So yeah, that's Unearthed Arcana in a nutshell. Let's see, what else do we have coming up here? So I mentioned it previously. I kickstarted a game called Blades in the Dark that should be coming out later this year. And once it comes out, you guys will probably see me do a couple runs of it on the channel here. I've got the playtest option, or the playtest rules. I'm waiting for an update, because the designer of the game actually mentioned that he was going to probably update those for everybody, and so I may do a game in the meantime. It is more of a thief design game. It's something that I haven't really had a chance to do, so it would be something to try. And the reason I bring that up is because PhDnD in his video does talk about trying new things. Whatever you're doing, you know, put it to the side for a little bit and try something new. Like if you're doing all online games, try at home games. If you're doing it all on home games, try online games. Which there's a couple communities that I always talk about, the RPG Wild Wild West and the Tabletop One Shot group. Both are on Facebook, so check them out if you're not currently subscribed or participating in those groups. If you are participating in those groups and you happen to be new, like we have a new member, Chelsea, who joined us, and through some encouragement of some of the other GMs around, we've all kind of helped her out getting set up. At some point, hopefully this week, I will be making an exception to my no games first finals rule, and we'll be doing a little video to kind of talk about what she has coming up, because she's got 2 games that she's already planned. And I want to say she's been with the group for about a month. So if you want to get into gaming, this is a really easy way to do it. You just kind of let us know. We've started what's called I think tentatively we're calling it the GM's Tavern. Essentially, some of the more seasoned GMs or even players can join in. Anybody who's interested in running a game, it's more like a open forum for discussion. Chelsea said she was going to be setting up a YouTube channel. When that comes up, I'll be plugging her channel as well as my own whenever I get a chance, because she's very enthusiastic about joining us and getting into those games, and I'd like to see a little bit more of that from other community members. So I kind of have an open door policy. If anybody here happens to have me or see me in one of the groups and wants to friend me, I'm always going to accept your friend request, and you can send me a direct message if you want, and I can give you a little bit of pointers, show you some online tools. Right now I'm working with the Unnamed Adventurers Guild to work on a map for their game. Generally, so long as my schedule allows it, I'll be able to provide you some assistance where you need it. And if my schedule doesn't provide it, What I'll do is I'll do what any good person will do, is kind of direct you towards somebody I think would have either a better opinion of something you're asking about than myself, or may have a good idea that I just don't have about your topic. I mentioned it before. I happen to be more of a hard sci-fi kind of guy when I run games, and a little bit more political games. Um, if that's your style, feel free to talk to me about that, because I've got some ideas for a lot of people. Um, and I'll probably be doing a video on my suggested reading if you want to play any of those or run any of those games, because I've noticed that our community does run a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. Well, I shouldn't say our community, because there's two of them now that are kind of the big ones out there. The One Shot group tends to play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. They also do Fate and Numenera, but there's been some interest in playing other systems that people have kind of talked about. They haven't really gotten started down there, and I think maybe a video that talks about the basics of like hard sci-fi, because that happens to be my favorite, would be a good way for me to kind of help push that along. So if I have any content providers that are tuned to my station, I would actually suggest the same for you. Whatever your favorite genre is, I'd like to see a video with you explaining what that genre is, what it means to you, why you like it, and maybe some pointers for anybody who's starting to consider running that genre. Like, I know that there's some people out there that I think it was Hollow Wanderer said that he likes a lot of horror games. And he's really good at impersonations and accents, if you guys are interested in learning that from him. We got to learn that during the last hangout in the GM's Tavern. But I would like to see a video from like him talking about, you know, what he goes for. He went for, okay, now I'm remembering it. It's tribal, kind of low tech, very intimate style games with horror aspects in them, is what he was talking about, which sounds like a very interesting game. I've tried to do that before, but I always fail, and it ends up being a global game instead, because that's the way I'm programmed to do a little bit more political stuff. So I'd like to see at least Hollow Wanderer give me a reply video to this, hopefully, telling me about how he does his tribal games effectively, because that's definitely an interesting one. If anybody happens to be an urban adventure specialist, like you do city adventures all the time, post, please, 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 please. Post your video. I've got 3 friends that we've been trying to figure out the formula for adventuring within the confines of a city, and we've gotten a little bit on our own. We've picked up Vornheim, the Complete City Kit, which is a good book that kind of explains how to do an adventure within the confines of one major city. But that's a little bit more designed towards the idea of like a mega city, which could totally work in like a sci-fi setting, or maybe like a mega fantasy city, like Bornheim happens to be. But I'm curious about anybody's tips and tricks for urban adventures, for fantasy specifically, because for whatever reason I have a roadblock when it comes to fantasy urban adventure. All right, guys, this video's probably gone on long enough. Any of the people that I've mentioned in my channel, or excuse me, in this broadcast, I will try to throw links to their main channels down here. The people that I talked about doing their May 4th videos, I'm going to link their specific video on here. And be sure you check out the rest of their stuff. Give them a good thumbs up, like and share their content. If you're not currently subscribed to them or myself, go ahead and click that button. All of those things that you guys are doing are help encourage me and get me a little bit more open. If you guys have been watching from the beginning, you probably will notice a pretty big difference in my broadcasting about how I'm talking to you guys and things like that. That's because of all the good support you guys have given me. Right before broadcasting this video, we were at 45 subscribers for my channel. I think tentatively, should I get to 100 subscribers, I'm probably going to do some sort of giveaway or something like that, because you guys have been really supportive. I mean, even if, like I said, if it's just like a comment that you guys want to throw down, that means so much to me as a channel provider, because it's not even that I feel validation in my own work. It's more that I feel like, you know, a community involvement. And that's why I've been keeping this community Saturday thing going, is because, you know, today is RPG Community Day. for the YouTube channels, but it should be just a community day every day, as far as I'm concerned. And so I think at least having that dedicated day for me to provide responses, thoughts about current topics, is a good way for me to stay within the community. I'd like to see more responses to some of my videos that are about the community, or because my videos have mainly been community responses. I'd like to see some other people coming in with some topics and things like that that they've seen around, that they want to share their own opinion, and do maybe a community Saturday tag or something like that. But definitely check out other channels, because a lot of guys have a lot of good content, and some of these guys you may not see a huge subscriber number. Don't discount them on that. Some of these small channels actually do have some good content. They just happen to be a little newer. So definitely look around today. Enjoy your day for Star Wars and everything. Oh, one final Star Wars note. The despecialized edition is supposed to be coming out in December. If you are not already planning to go get that, please stop planning to go get that, because I want at least a copy for myself, and then probably a copy for me to hide. And then I may have to convince myself out of a third copy, because the despecialized edition looks amazing. They're finally going to fix colors. They're going to correct the scenes back to the way they were originally on tape. I've hated so much the remakes because they changed so much stuff. People like float by. It's terrible. If you've never seen like somebody tell you about what's wrong with the special edition versions, look it up online. Like the biggest thing that I could think of that's instantly noticeable is the fact that characters tend to look like they're floating from the background, like it's kind of a fluid motion. And then the other one is the reds are wrong. If you watch the blaster fire, Imperials are supposed to fire red shots. The lightsabers that the Sith use are red. You know, stuff like that. If you look for the reds in the originals that got specialized, they all come out purple and they look weird. It bothers me to no end. I just can't stand that. Like it's color. They shouldn't have screwed that up. But like I said, if you want to see it the way it's supposed to have been done, let's all cross our fingers and hope that the despecialized comes out as good as we're hoping for. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you at the gaming table.